Hey guys, I am perfectly willing to admit that there are probably inconsistencies and contradictions in the vitriolic shit that I've spewed for thousands of years, but you can call me Church. Now, this week I am drinking a very affordable wine, a Woodbridge Chardonnay from California, vintage 2018. If you want to drink along with me, I'm willing to bet that your local liquor store has this on the bottom of its white wine shelf. So go ahead and throw $9 at your local liquor store. Now, this week, I am again quite limited in the media that I consumed. I did finally watch Mission Impossible Fallout. I did not watch the previous title. I can't even Ghost Protocol or some shit. I can't keep track, but it's a pretty damn good action movie. It's well shot. The action is great. It's hokey, but it's aware of it. That's all I can say. It was pretty damn good. But the main thing that I consumed this week was a video game called Blacksad, Under the Skin. Now, for most of my life, as I think many have, I fantasized about being the center of a noir detective story, or a series of noir detective stories, and I really engage with the style and the detective work, even though it's obviously fucking problematic how classic noir is depicted, but neo-noir and all that is more embracive of modern trends, and I was kind of invited into that by my father's classic love of Blade Runner and how I grew up with that as one of my favorite fucking movies ever. So, needless to say, I've been served fairly well by the modern attempt to reinvigorate the adventure game as a genre in video games. There have been a lot of new games coming out that try to pull back on the abstraction of the detective work and create systems where you are actually figuring things out. And I fucking love having to do actual research and look into the clues I'm given. And I haven't quite come across a game that fully embodies that yet, but they're trending upward. I'm really enjoying what's coming out now, and before anybody says anything in the comments, I know. I know I fucking need to play Disco Elysium. It's on my list. I don't think my current PC can handle it at all, even an isometric RPG like that. I just don't think it can do it. So, someday, I'm definitely gonna play Disco Elysium, and I know I'm gonna fucking love it. But right now, I'm engaging with the console games that I have available. For example, I fucking loved The Sinking City, which is a Lovecraftian story where you play as a detective and go around this basically post-apocalyptic town and find clues. You actually have to read directions and put your own waypoints on the map. You have to go and research old newspapers, old books, all that shit, and it's really cool. I like it a lot, and it's on the cusp of what I really want from a detective simulator. But most recently, I got Blacksad on the Switch. And this one is far more in the style of like a Telltale game where you sometimes have environments that you look around for clues and shit to do in. But the bulk of it is dialogue, picking up items in small environments, and then putting clues together in basically your mind palace, which is what most of these detective games call it, where you look at clues and put them together in a certain order to create new clues that will go with the clues you already have, and so on and so forth, until you solve certain sections of the mystery the game has set up. And I have no objections with this mechanic. I think it's a good fundamental idea expressed in a way that, unless your fucking UI is clunky, is well suited to the feeling of the revelation. But the problem I do have with these sorts of games is the linearity. There is one specific conclusion that you can come to, and it's the correct one. And I find that problematic in actual detective simulation because people can be wrong. And I want a game that trusts me to be wrong now. I will say on Blacksad, it trusts you to get clues early and figure shit out early that won't be revealed until the very fucking end, but it also won't let your character figure that out. Now, on Blacksad's presentation, I was well surprised. It runs like absolute dog shit. It's, at least on the Switch version, it doesn't look good. There are tons of glitches, and there are game-breaking bugs where you have to jump back a couple chapters to be able to move past them. Now, I will give them credit. There is a progress menu where you can jump back those chapters and try to do it slightly differently to avoid that bug, and that's what I had to do a couple times in this. But the presentation is fucking terrible. I wish this had been a more polished game, because there's a really good fucking story there, and there's a really interesting world. Now, it's based off of a series of graphic novels, I believe, or a comic book series, but I've not engaged with that pretty much at all. But I do find the style interesting, because what it is it's basically the real world, but everyone's animals representative of their stereotypes, their traits at a surface level, kind of like BoJack Horseman, if you have watched that series on Netflix. But in this, it takes place in the 50s, and racial discrimination is still a thing. So you've got animals calling it, and it's still between white and black. And it's interesting because, like, you can't fucking tell. Like, sure, a polar bear, that's a white character, but your character Blacksad, who looks like a black cat, is treated as a white person. Like, there's no discrimination anywhere for him, and I'm still not sure whether or not he's black or white in this universe's logic. But like, a gorilla is considered black, and it really brings to surface the absurdity of racial discrimination, and I commend it for that. It veers pretty heavily into some very dark territory, and with the race stuff and the violence and all that, it makes it absurd and kind of catches you off guard, because they are these cartoony animal characters. So it is pretty effective on those fronts, but just as a detective game, I do find it lacking. And that disappoints me, that the performance is horrible and that it doesn't quite fulfill the promises that current adventure games are teetering on for a detective style story, a noir style story. Because I think the Story told here is great. I think it's worth a pickup if you understand the limitations of this game and just want to hear a good kind of noir style story. But other than that, I can't really recommend it. It's a fairly specialized group of people that will enjoy this game enough to get over its flaws. Now, I do, before I let you go for the week, want to recommend some good detective games that I've played. The Infectious Madness of Dr. Decker and The Shape-Shifting Detective are two FMV adventure games that respect the player enough to allow them to choose the wrong fucking option, and then they don't backtrack in the ending and tell them, oh, that was wrong, here's the real answer. Which I find really fascinating because you have to take the details of the endings, everything that you experienced in these games so far, and decide for yourself whether or not you are wrong, which I think is pretty valuable in the detective stories. Now, these are FMV games, so they're real people acting in a cinematic video format. So there are some misses, of course, because they're not high budget, they're not high demand games, they're pretty niche, but I think they will serve you well if this is the kind of game you're looking for. And I think encouraging game developers to say this is a more in-demand niche than you think will give us more better quality games where it's not just a telltale, here's the story, choose your action. It's here are the characters, here are some facts, and here are some possibly misrepresented stories. You decide what the correct conclusion is. And I am hopeful for the future of detective games, noir games, adventure games, even fucking isometric RPGs that are massively choice-based and narrative-based. Obviously, I'm gonna fucking play Disco Elysium. Don't harass me, please. But I do think that's a good, hopeful message to leave you off with. I think we're gonna enjoy the next 5 years of gaming if you're in the same boat as me with these detective games, so I hope you enjoy your week so far. What the fuck am I talking about? It's fucking Monday, right? I hope you enjoy your week going forward. As always, this has been Church on Monday, the podcast where I talk at you about shit I like. Alright? Oh, P.S. This makes 10 episodes, so thank you guys for double digits. If you've been listening all the way through, even if you haven't and you just arrived, go ahead and hit subscribe. Give me a like. All my socials will be down in the description below. I have been surviving with this podcast. You know, it's a great motivation. I really appreciate that I started it when I did because it's been great to pull me through some rough fucking times, so thank you all for being around. Once again, love you. Bye. No tears, don't fuck with more yet. Take what you can get. You're not my girlfriend.